1.3 is on collecting sample data. And a good quote to keep in mind is, if sample data are not collected in an appropriate way, the data may be so utterly useless that no amount of statistical torturing can salvage them. Now, when it comes to experimental design and whatnot, we have this gold standard where we use randomization with placebo and treatment groups and have various treatment levels based on those. An experiment itself is defined as applying some treatment and then proceed to observe its effects on the individuals or experimental units or subjects. An observational study is where you observe and measure specific characteristics but do not attempt to modify the individuals being studied, meaning there is no treatment groups in this. And with an experiment, we could have these lurking variables, and that's a variable that's not included in the study that affects the variables included in the study. Experiments typically well, I shouldn't say typically. Experiments always use replication, which is the repetition of an experiment on more than one individual. This entails large sample sizes to see effects of treatments. And these experiments could have a form of this blinding. That's where the subject does not know the treatment level or if they have a placebo. It's used to limit the placebo effect, which is when an untreated subject reports improvements, and those improvements themselves might be real or imaginary. A double-blind experiment is where both the subject and researcher does not know the treatment level or if the subject has the placebo. And then finally, randomization can be used in an experiment to assign the individuals to different groups through random selection. And just like with experiments, we have sampling designs. The first being simple random sample of n subjects is sorted so that every possible sample of size n has the same chance of being chosen. Systematic sampling chooses a starting point and then every kth element or individual. Convenience sampling is data that's very easy to obtain and no real attempt at randomization. Stratified sampling is you divide the population into homogeneous groups or strata. Homogeneous meaning that they share a characteristic. Share the characteristic. And then choose a sample from each stratum. Cluster sampling is when we divide into sections or clusters, and then randomly select some clusters and choose all members in each of those clusters. And then finally, multi-stage sampling is you sort the sample in different stages using any of these different methods, although not convenient sampling. And an observational study, that's where we, again, observe and measure but do not modify. But we have three types, right? A retrospective or case control study. This is where we go back in time to collect data over some past period. A cross-sectional study are the data are measured at one point in time. And a prospective study or longitudinal or cohort study. It goes forward in time and observes groups sharing common factors such as smokers and non-smokers. So case control study is observed, measured, collected at one point in time, not over time. A retrospective or case control study is collected from a past time period, like records, interviews. And a prospective study, a longitudinal or cohort study, is collected in the future from groups called cohorts that share common factors. And when it comes to more on experiments, we could have this confounding of variables that an effect is seen but cannot identify a specific factor. It uses completely, and some types of experiments use completely randomized experiments. This assigns subjects to different treatment groups by random selection. Randomized block design are homogeneous groups or blocks of individuals and then randomly assign treatments within each block. The matched pairs design compares treatment groups using subjects matched in pairs that are similar in characteristics, such as before or after tests, or using these different treatments on twins. And then rigorously controlled designs, they carefully assign to treatment groups so subjects given each treatment are similar in ways that are important to the experiment. But this last type, though, is very difficult to implement. And when it comes to sampling designs, we can have these sampling errors. And that's where the sample was selected with a random method, but there was a discrepancy between the sample result and the true population. Non-sampling error is the result of human error, data entry, computing error, biased wording, false data provided, forming biased conclusions, or using inappropriate methods. And non-random sampling errors are where the sampling method is not random. Thank you.